Yeah, but it's nothing that I'd really thought about before, Jim. Like, so I like nerding out on stuff like Lego. You like nerding out on
Planes
like,
and cows,
oh, what's my
mate.
favourite cow?
You hear a lot of people saying it with Man United, and Gary Neville's always crying about it. A lot of MDs will say that, look, we've been breached again because one of our users done this, but more often than not, you know, that user can be helped by people above them, and it does need to filter down, you know, throughout the whole organisation.
The habits thing, like how many times do we speak to people? Like we're having discussions about this all the time. Like even here behind the scenes and stuff, we're always talking about like multi-factor authentication, passwords, like what can be done. And then you'll have a conversation with the same person a few weeks later, and it is just a random conversation. Like, oh, have you got multi-factor authentication on this? Or like, oh, I'm not too sure about these passwords. You're like, this is what we're talking about day in, day out. And even off the back of conversations.
2 minutes later.
Yeah, that's it.
I want to say a 15-minute lecture about writing passwords down.
Lecture.
So about 5
That's
seconds.
probably why it didn't go down too well.
It was a 15-minute lecture about. It was basically don't write your passwords
You
down.
might as well have called it a rant.
It was, do you know, like in Peaky Blinders, when Tommy Shelby was going around, he's going, no fighting, no fighting, no fighting. It was like that. You go around to everyone, don't write your passwords down, don't write your passwords down, don't write your passwords down.
Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Rob and I'm incredibly excited to introduce to you our podcast, Strictly Cyber. We've created this space specifically for business owners like you who want to understand cybersecurity without getting lost in the technical jargon. I'm joined with James.
Hi everyone.
And today we're diving into the world of cybersecurity process and policies and exploring how they can help protect your business and data. Don't worry, we're leaving the technical language at the door and keeping it simple. First, I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. I think I need to write a different intro, you know, because every time I introduce myself, it's got to be different.
I might lie on mine.
I
might lie on mine.
Yeah. Well, you got some better news to tell people now, haven't you? You know what I mean? You're on another level now, mate. Yeah. My name's Rob. I'm the director of Kit365, a cybersecurity business based out of Leicester. I've been in and around the cybersecurity and IT industry for about 20 years.
What's something like fun we could add into the intros? Because I feel like it'd be quite good. Like the whole thing. What's your favourite like breed of cow? And you said Highland, which is just the most basic, boring answer ever. Like,
yeah, but it's nothing that I'd really thought about before, Jim. Like, so I like nerding out on stuff like Lego. You like nerding out
Planes
on like,
and cows,
oh, what's
mate.
my favourite cow? Like
Black
yeah,
Angus.
You know what I mean?
Black
Like
Angus is a beast. What's your favourite plane?
my favourite plane.
And there's two questions you can ask here because
Paper plane.
No,
No, they are pretty
no,
cool.
I'll give you
though,
that.
to be
That's a
fair.
good answer. No, but
There's
like
nothing more satisfying than making a paper plane, throwing it, and watching it fly. That is pretty.
Yeah, if
that
it
is
worked.
a good.
I'm just sorry because I've never been able to make a good one.
You're just like, oh look, flight radar, driving down the M1, plane. I've got my fun fact already. I know what mine is.
What's your fun fact?
My fun fact is I was that bored last year, I decided to learn how to do the Rubik's Cube. I'm trying to get my time
And you
down.
called me sad.
Mate,
Trying to get that's the worst thing ever.
mate, trust me, right? If I turn up to a party and there's a Rubik's Cube all mixed up there and I'm just like, boom, done, people will be like, yeah, nerd, but fair enough. If you turn up and go, what's your favourite cow? They're going to be like, right, where's the next
I'll
party?
get the party
You'll clear
started,
the room, mate. You're killing that party off.
I bet I could get a group of 50 people talking about cows for at least half an hour.
We probably could.
There'd be a scrap. People would be arguing about it. I'd get people that into it. Hi everyone, I'm James, professional bodybuilder. Something believable, maybe. Ex-professional bodybuilder.
Something believable. Hi, I'm James, and I think with enough practice, I could be the next Luke Littler.
I do. Just my point is, if you give me 365 days a year, unemployed, with the only thing I was doing was darts, I think I could be a professional darts player.
Right, now introduce yourself.
Yeah. In the office, yeah.
He's already a
I'm supposed to be
professional darts
working.
player. That's what he gets paid for.
Hi everyone, I'm James. I'm a security analyst at Kit365. I've been in and around cyber for around 2 years and technology as a whole for around 5.
Yeah, so you've got something else to add to your resume as well
Yep.
now, haven't you?
Yep.
Some
Passed
good news on Friday,
CSTM,
which means...
lead assessor, Cyber Essentials Plus.
There we go.
The exam itself was the worst thing ever. It was horrible, and I never want to do it again.
Well, Yeah, I think I've been through it a couple of times, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't think you can like really tell anybody what the experience is going to be like. They've got to go through it themselves.
It's
But
intense, yeah.
nevertheless,
Yeah.
you went and smashed
Enjoyed
it
it
and
though.
got through it.
It was fun. It's just
And you're
incredibly
there,
intense.
and that's it for the next 3 years. You hold
Yeah.
that status now, so
To the beach. I'm not going to think about it for the next 3 years because I don't want to do that again.
yeah. Well, the last couple of weeks has been. I mean, you've been away on the training course for a week, so you've been like out the business focusing on that, and then it was kind of easing you back in, I suppose. Been continuing to do a lot of CEC pluses. It's what we refer to as silly season now for us. Like between kind of now, start of July, all the way through to December, it will just be.
This will be the only time we speak to each other.
Yeah, when
we'll
do
get
stuff
in
like
the office.
this.
It'll be morning and then bye at 5 o'clock.
Well, that's kind of the in joke, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we'll probably speak to each other 8 times before, between now and Christmas. So yeah, it's going to be a busy few weeks. I think we're both ramping up. Again, off the back of kind of what you've just achieved with your CSTM, it kind of takes the pressure off, like me having to sign everything off as well. Like you can do that on your own now.
And having to renew yours, that's another big thing that had been coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be renewing mine anyway. I think mine's due kind of October time, so I'll be going through it. You can tell me what I've got to do. And
Don't ask me, mate. I can't remember any of it.
Yeah.
It's all a blur.
And then, so that's kind of what we've got going on, really. Just continuing to do the assessments, just looking at the work calendar over the next months, like kind of overwhelming a little bit, but we'll get through it. We normally do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it'll be fine. It's gonna be very busy though. This is like it always seems to be the first 6 months of the year. We have a decent amount of work on. It's kind of this is nice and easy. We're kind of getting through this, and then the last 6 months. Yeah, it goes a bit nuts, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I obviously look at these kind of things as a small business owner as well, and I think because we were so busy like last year for the last 6 months, it's actually been quite busy the first 6 months of this year.
Yeah.
But because it's not been as
How
silly
we
as
were used to.
like you kind of we'd ramped up to be working the way that we're working at full speed, like barely talking to each other, like all jokes aside, and then when it comes to it being a little bit quieter and a little bit more manageable, you go, like, where's all this work disappeared to? But in actual fact, it's not gone anywhere. It was just more manageable for us both.
But to be fair, I feel like as well the first 6 months of this year, we've streamlined quite a lot of bits and we've kind of been a lot more efficient with work. So kind of things haven't been lingering around as long as they usually might, and especially with like C&C plus, we've had a lot of applicants kind of be audited and then just pass within a few days. So a lot of work has been coming in and getting out fairly quickly, which has made it feel a bit quieter.
But that just goes to show you that they've been maintaining it throughout the year, or if they've like their second, the third year round, they're just getting better and better and stronger and stronger. They're kind of used to the process. They know what things should be in, and there's very minor tweaks that they have to do to actually, achieve Cyber Essentials Plus now. I think as a business as well, like usually we do like an end of year kind of reflection, like what we've done, this year, like how's it gone, all the rest of it. But already it seems like there's been quite a lot of wins this year, becoming a CREST registered organisation. ISO 27001 for ourselves. Your CSTM, like they're all like massive.
You'd have been happy with that at the end of the year.
Oh, 100%.
At the start of the year.
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said to you the other day, I think I'd have been happy getting to the end of the year with my sanity more than anything.
Just
So
kind of feeling like you can breathe.
So the fact that I do feel sane and we've achieved all that already, and we're kind of July,
Now we strap in and
that's it.
get ready for the run into Christmas, which is always, like you said, ridiculously busy. It's always just absolutely crazy. But I always say that makes the beer taste better at Christmas, doesn't it? Like, do you know, when you've been flat out for 6 months, having that point where it's like, right, we're done now, 2 weeks. Yeah, that beer tastes great.
So that's what you're looking forward to.
That's
then.
my favourite beer. Yeah, that's my favourite beer.
Looking forward to
Do you know,
Christmas.
people talk about like the Friday beer, all of this. No, it's like last day, like before Christmas break. That's the best beer.
I think some of the things for the business as well that I started looking at last year and wanted to focus on was doing these kind of podcasts, like marketing, like I said before, it felt like we'd grown the business over 4 or 5 years, like really hiding in the shadows. And the next stage really was to start promoting what we were doing. So looking at podcasts, marketing, websites. One of the things that I'm looking at doing over the next kind of 12 months is doing my own personal branding, if you like, and putting more content out there for people to consume, which is really about promoting better habits, because that's what it comes down to. You know, what we actually want to be doing is promoting better habits to make people more secure, more confident.
That would be cool. Thinking about it, like on the like habits in cyber, because we had this conversation the other day, didn't we, when we were with Dan, and we were talking about like cyber and a lot of the issues businesses face is down to habits and things that they've done forever and feel like they can't change because it's just pure habit. And I think it would be quite good to have like, do you know Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Yeah.
Do you know, like thinking back to like when I read that, you can apply it to cyber a lot and the way businesses work. It'd almost be cool to have like a little like spin-off or like how people can switch their habits, because there's a lot you can actually take from that. Well,
how many times do we see it? I mean, this is obviously something, like I said, for me, it was about starting to get visibility around what we're doing. And the more I've thought about it and some of the conversations we have, it literally is down to like habits. We speak about human firewalls, like you can throw as much technology at this stuff as you want, but ultimately it's people that are being social engineered, or it's their habits, or, you know, people playing on kindness. The two things that I'm coming back to is one, habits, and one of those first habits you can really start to do is pause before panic. Like that's like a good one, I think. The habits thing, like how many times do we speak to people? Like we're having discussions about this all the time. Like even here behind the scenes and stuff, we're always talking about like multi-factor authentication, passwords, like what can be done. And then you'll have a conversation with the same person a few weeks later, and it is just a random conversation. Like, oh, have you got multi-factor authentication on this? Or like, oh, I'm not too sure about these passwords. And you're like, this is what we're talking about day in, day out. And even off the back of conversations,
2 minutes later.
Yeah,
like
that's it.
The best one ever was when we did an audit somewhere, and I think you gave, I want to say, a 15-minute lecture about writing passwords down. So about 5
That's
seconds.
probably why it didn't go down too well.
It was a 15-minute lecture about. It was basically don't write your passwords down.
You might as well have called it a rant.
It was, do you know, like in Peaky Blinders, one time Michelle was going around, he's going, no fighting, no fighting, no fighting. It was like that. You go around to everyone, don't write your passwords down, don't write your passwords down, don't write your passwords down. And then literally, it was 2 minutes after. You changed the password for something, went over to someone, they went, oh, what's the password for this? And you went to go say it, and as you went to speak, grab the pen. But again, that's
it's behaviour though.
Like back to like Atomic Habits, it's the cue. It's like when you're talking about like cues to habits, somebody like is about to tell you a password, that's the cue, grab my pen.
Yeah.
Like write it down.
Yeah.
And it like, you don't need to. And it's changing the actual habit that needs to happen.
Yeah, 100%. So that really is what we're doing, or I'd like to do with my personal branding to promote things like that, is helping people with these quick tips. You know, people have got to want to change as well. And I get it, it's hard to change any kind of habit, right? Even if you want to start eating healthier or going to the gym or whatever it might be. But you've got to be putting it out there for people to be able to take on board and try and just chip away at it bit by bit, really. So policies and processes and procedures within organisations that I suppose can prevent cyber, or at least reduce the risk, is what we're going to be touching on today. So how do they help organisations? Well, for me, I think a good way of looking at how they work together, like what is a policy versus what is a process or a procedure, for me, they work hand in hand. It's almost like baking a cake. Like if you know how to bake a cake without the recipe, that's the process. Whereas the recipe is actually the policy that's telling you how to do it.
Yeah.
So You might have a process within the business that is resetting your password, for example, or choosing a password. You might know what that process is. You might know that, well, I've got to do these certain tasks to make sure that I can reset my password there. But what the policy is also doing is telling you how you should structure that password. And there's other policies as well, right? Like it could be like, I don't know, a joiners, movers or leavers process. Like you will have a process for if somebody's starting or is going to join your business, there will be a process there that says, right, they start the business, they need an account, we create the account, we hand that account over. There's a simple kind of process there. But to back that up, you also need the policy that literally almost lists that out.
And it's like, if the policy is the recipe and the procedure is the baking of the cake, in a kitchen of 10, 15, 20 people, everybody needs to know the recipe. And that's kind of the key thing with policies and procedures. Everybody needs to know it for you to actually end up with a cake at the end. Because if at some point somebody starts throwing something else into the mix, then you're not going to end up with the best cake in the world.
Yeah.
You might end up with an omelette.
And I think these are the kind of challenges that come along as well, right? So when you look at organisations of different sizes, they're all going to have their own challenges. Like for an organisation or a small business like ours, where we all work together, there's 5 or 6 of us, we all work really close together. We kind of work in this space. Well, we do work in this space. There's no kind of about it. We work in this space. We're talking about this all the time within the office. Whereas like somebody that's a sole trader or, one-man band, they might not necessarily feel that they need any processes as such, or policies. But I would argue it's still important that they're at least thinking about it and have some things in place, especially if they're thinking about cyber and what that means to the business and what that means to protect their users, their employees, themselves, the customer data. The whole point in organisations of all size having processes and policies is, again, for smaller organisations, 1, say even up to 10 that are quite closely knit, these things will be discussed more regularly. But as an organisation gets bigger, you get new people through the door, there's different management tiers and structures. It's important to let them know what they've got to do. So there'll be an element of training in there, but also they need access to these policies. That it might be a case of not too sure whether I've sent the email to the right person. Like, what do I do? Like, do I know who I should be telling? Is there a policy that I can look at that tells me that I've got to contact someone? And that is the reinforcement of the process and the policy together.
Yeah, it gets bigger and more complex the bigger the organisation is, and that's usually due to departments and bigger departments and more departments. But it doesn't always necessarily get harder, we can find, because generally speaking, like you said, in the kind of micro organisations, less than 10 employees, everything seems to be straight to the MD. If there's anything you're unsure of, MD, new user, managing director, like everything kind of all feeds back to the MD, and that can at times be a problem for smaller organisations, but that depends on the MD. Like we talk about this a lot, about how things like filter down from the top, and in micro organisations with like security culture, more often than not, or I'd say 99 times out of 100, the kind of processes and people's awareness around cyber is only ever as good as the managing directors.
I think so. Let's talk about what processes we see or we come across within Cyber Essentials.
Yeah, so policy and process within Cyber Essentials is one of them things where I think there's only actually one that you need for Cyber Essentials, or that is mentioned, which is password policy. Specifically in a question that is mentioned, yes, but there's a lot of other policies that really do make it a lot easier to achieve Cyber Essentials.
I think this comes back to like the whole process and policy thing and how they work together. Like most of the questions do actually say, what is your process?
Yeah.
And that's fine to know what the process is, but to 100% make that solid and back it up, is why you need the policy.
Yeah.
So for me, even if it mentions process, I would recommend that you also have that policy to support
to
it.
back
100%.
it up, yeah.
So the things that they talk about in there, you mentioned the password policy.
And then processes, there's all sorts. You've got firewall review. You've got to be reviewing your firewalls. And then a lot of the other processes come down to, like you said, joiners, leavers, movers, and kind of account creation, giving people administrator access, leavers accounts, what happens with them. And there's a lot more examples. What else do we have? Got leavers. You've got joiners, movers, leavers. They're all mentioned. You've got admin access, firewall reviews. There's more. Go on, throw something there.
Yeah, no. So you've got the first one that it really speaks about is changing your default password really on your firewall. Like, what is your process for that? But that's more than your firewall. I mean, it mentions about your firewall, and again, it depends whether you're using a software firewall or a hardware firewall. So have you got a bit of kit, or are you just using your laptop's kind of firewall? Will depend. But ultimately, what you need to be doing is making sure that you haven't got any default passwords on these things. So it mentions a process for changing the password. Nowadays,
again, they're just kind of jumping in. That's habit. Default passwords is a massive habit thing. You get a new bit of kit out of the box, the first thing you do is change your default password.
Well, nowadays it's a lot better than what it was. Like before, these like devices or whatnot would never ask you to change. Like the first thing you do nowadays is change password. Like even the manufacturers and the vendors have got onto that and will force you to do that. But you're right, it is a habit that people need to change really and get into the habit of changing a device.
Passwords,
But it's also, again, to bring it back to the habit, is if you believe that it's been compromised, or again, if it's being managed by an IT provider and you end up changing, it's knowing that it's not just their responsibility. You can get on there and do it if you need to. Just a process and a policy to support it. How do I change my password on my firewall? The next one really talks about a process behind making sure that you've only got the relevant things open on your firewall. So again, another policy or process to be checking every year that nothing's been changed on that firewall that allows anything that you're not expecting in. You might have had something like a mail server, an email server hosted within your office, and now you've gone to cloud like Office 365, so you might need to close the services and ports on your firewall. So again, just making sure that things like that haven't been forgotten. Again, it's habit, it's housekeeping, keeping on top of it.
Yeah, and then you kind of move on to what you've got security updates in there. That's a big thing within Cyber Essentials and becomes a big thing in Plus, and kind of one of the hurdles that we see a lot of applicants fall over at. And it's essentially a process to make sure that all critical and high severity security updates are installed within 14 days of release. A lot of people nowadays do that through auto updates, but the kind of whole thing with Cyber Essentials is if those auto updates fail, what is your process to ensure that they still get applied? And then, that means, do you have a manual process? Do you have something to monitor these updates so you know when they fail? And then you can go and apply them manually, and kind of what is that process to make sure that they do get applied within 14 days of release?
Yeah, and that can be different for different size organisations as well, like we spoke about before. For someone that is maybe a one-person sole trader, maybe working with a laptop and a mobile phone, it's a lot easier to do those manual checks yourself. Again, it is a habit thing. If you've got to set a reminder in your calendar every 2 weeks just to check, or every month to check, just make sure you're doing these updates, making sure that automatic updates have been done. Again, it's that process, it's that habit, it's that behaviour with all this stuff. For organisations that are 5 or 10, maybe it's part of a weekly meeting, or a monthly kind of get together. Have you done your updates? Is there anything that needs to be done, or any issues? For larger organisations, maybe they're relying on their IT providers again, and again, it's just making sure that
you've got that way of checking that this is being done,
keeping them accountable. Really, I mean, IT providers, there's a lot of a lot of good IT providers out there. But again, it still comes down to your processes and making sure that you're keeping them accountable. Because if there are issues and they're not being reported in, like how do you know what you don't know?
Yeah.
And then we move into things like you say, joiners, movers, leavers, processes, and that really is about securing the data and access control, making sure that users are only given the access they need to the information they need to access, making sure that if a user role changes, again, they're given the right access. If someone leaves, making sure they can't get access anymore.
And also a big one is making sure that you've kind of, well, that you document who has admin level access, because a lot of organisations have no idea who their admins are, who has admin level access into their systems, and that's a huge thing. So tracking admin accounts, making sure you've got a real procedure and again policy to back that up of how people gain admin access. It's not just kind of turn around and say, hi, can I have an admin account? Yeah, sure, go on then. It's something behind it, and it's documented and tracked who has admin access.
Yeah, and that's again for Cyber Essentials and Plus. That's like it's a level of like asset management there. Like you're managing your administrative account assets, if you like. But you're right; it's important to know really what systems you've got and who has access to those. One of the things I think that is missing or could be improved a little bit in Cyber Essentials. They do ask for it, and I suppose it isn't really a Cyber Essentials thing. This again is a habit and a process to implement, but people really don't track their cloud services.
No.
And off the back of that, they have no idea whether those cloud services have multi-factor authentication or not, whether they have account separation, so standard users versus admins. And that is habit and process and something else that they need to keep tabs on. I mean, especially with that one, that's even harder for IT providers to know what you're using on a day-to-day basis.
It's something IT providers struggle with, because we have a lot of times IT providers help applicants fill in Cyber Essentials. They put the cloud services in that they're aware of. It comes around to doing Plus, and we find 5 more that the IT provider was completely unaware of. That's usually because of things like it might be a HR package that's like outsourced through a different company, and it's
usually
kind of
what you find is the IT provider know of the cloud services that
they resell.
they're reselling or
Yeah.
that they're helping manage.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff that's kind of operational, like you were saying, like HR or whatever it might be, they're the ones they're not aware of.
Yeah. And they're usually where these gaps kind of appear, and they're usually the ones we find that don't have MFA enabled, because it will be a HR package that, you know, the IT provider isn't aware of. So how likely is it that the best security practices are going to be implemented onto that cloud services? Chances more often than not are slim. So that's usually where we find MFA not enabled.
But that leads us nicely onto like a process for sourcing cloud services, right? Like straight away, if we go look for a service that we want to introduce into the business, like our number one go-to is like, does it have multi-factor authentication, or can you configure it with single sign-on? At the same time, and equally, we're also looking at, right, if we use this cloud service, where is the information stored?
Yeah.
Is it in a foreign country? Is it in the UK? Is it in the EU? Like, so they're really the two main drivers behind our cloud service when we're sourcing a cloud service.
Yeah, and how can we control access, and what can we... My big thing as well, obviously outside of MFA, is what can we see in the admin panel? You know, when you have these cloud services and you've usually got an administrator panel, what control do you actually have? Because you see somewhere it's really slim, and it's just you can see a list of users that have got access. You can change their password, you can change them to an admin or a standard user, and then that's about it. You can't create groups so they can see specific you know, areas of the cloud service. You can't see their MFA status and whether they've got it set up. I love a cloud service where you can enforce MFA and create security policies. They're the kind of things that people need to be looking for, because more often than not, there's an alternative that has all of these features, that does the same job, and probably should have been considered when they were originally sourcing the cloud service.
But that comes down to policy as well, again,
Yeah.
doesn't it? And like process, like what is your process for reviewing all this, and how do we put it in? And like you were saying, if you go for the cloud service, like if you're basing a cloud service, for example, on cloud service A has multi-factor authentication, and we as administrators can enforce a policy for multi-factor authentication, versus one where you have no visibility. You know it's there, but you have no visibility as to whether that user has it enabled or not. This is why having a strong policy, a strong process, good habits to tell users, like, if you use this cloud service, you need to enable multi-factor authentication. Again, just driving those good habits into people off the back of a process, off the back of a policy, without making it shameful and things like that.
Yeah, and that's usually done from minute one when a user joins the organisation and kind of their onboarding. It's, you're getting, at the time where you're getting users access to all of your systems that they need to, that's kind of where that security culture can be passed down, and you go, look, you're creating your password. We like our passwords to fit this, and we need to enable MFA. And when that's done at the onboarding, that stays with the user the whole time they're in the organisation.
Well, it's implanted from the get-go. But you're right. I think the word that you used there was spot on, which was culture. Like, it is a culture thing, and it has to be driven from the top.
Yeah.
And people have to be accountable for it.
The example I always use is like with Man United, because you hear a lot of people saying it with Man United, and Gary Neville's always crying about it. Like about Man United and how a lot of their issues on the pitch are coming down from the top, and the kind of the state the club's in, it's an entire mess, and it's coming down right from the top, and it filters down, and it does eventually get to the pitch, and that's what the problem is throughout a lot of organisations when it comes to security culture. A lot of MDs will say that, look, we've been breached again because one of our users done this, but more often than not, that user can be helped by people above them, and it does need to filter down, throughout the whole organisation.
Yeah, agreed. So there's, the password policies as well. I think that's one of the key starting points for most people, really, is with the password policy. Making sure that passwords are structured in a way, giving advice around using password managers. And a lot of people get breached. It is through some form of social engineering, through some form of weak password. Really what we want to be doing is getting people's usernames and passwords. The stronger people's passwords are, the harder it's going to be. And then, it's not, there's no silver bullet for all this stuff. But then if that's backed up with multi-factor authentication in cloud services and things as well, it's just making it harder.
Yeah. It's layers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's having kind of layers to an organisation's approach to security that kind of gives them the best chance. Because like you said, there's no silver bullet, there's no black and white, there's no do this and you'll be secure. Sometimes it is a guessing game, and people can be breached due to just pure bad luck.
Well, it happens.
And they can be unlucky.
It does happen.
And that's another thing kind of we talk about a lot. People kind of need to be more open about breaches, because sometimes you can take a step back and look at it and go, I kind of did everything right. So, there's this kind of, not stigma, but bad look at kind of cyber incidents and attacks, and
any kind of crime.
Yeah,
The victim is always made to feel like they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
How do organisations implement policies? Or do you want to ask me the question?
Yeah. Well, you've just spent about 2 months doing this, so you're the man for this,
mate. 2 months. It
was
spent
longer than
about
that.
6 years doing it.
So, how do organisations actually implement policies?
Yeah, so the starting point behind a policy really is to obviously create it, which usually is some form of document or text, Excel spreadsheet, trackers. When we were talking about admin trackers and cloud trackers, they're usually good in like an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. just rows and columns, lists, different things that you want to check off. Policies are usually Word documents. So you would write your policy out, whatever it might be. Let's focus on a password policy, for example. So you would say, we want 12 character passwords. We want to use 3 random words. Our passwords want to be made up of uppercase, lowercase, special characters. If you're using a cloud service, you enable multi-factor authentication. Your mobile phone should have a minimum of a 6-digit PIN to unlock them. I would recommend 8 myself, but nevertheless, so you kind of structure your document like that. You might want to give them some kind of advice on password managers. Once you've created your document, given it an owner, so the owner of this document is the MD or the person in HR or whoever it might be, signed off, and really you want somewhere on a share that people can access it. So and that's your policy implemented. At that point, what you're doing is letting people know that this is what our policy is, this is where it is. If you struggle with any of that, this is the person to contact. And that pretty much is how you implement a policy.
I don't think you could sum it up any better, to be fair. I seen his eyes light up when I asked him that question. Like, ooh.
Love a policy.
Yeah.
But that is. I mean, it almost sounds too simple to be true. That literally is what you're doing with policies.
Yeah, it is.
You're writing Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or whatever it might be. It's usually a bit of a text like, what is our health and safety policy? Should I be closing fire doors behind me? Should I be turning lights off at night? Like, there's all kinds of different policies within an organisation, not just cyber, not just information security, but it literally could be anything. Physical security, locking doors before you leave. You know what the process is. There's the policy. The policy just needs to be somewhere that people can access it if they need to double check. Like, if you're a key holder, for example, and you're going on holiday, like, I'm not, who now has the responsibility? No, you might need to go and check a policy, and you might need to know where that policy is to go and check.
Yeah.
And that really is. It is as simple as that. I think it does come back to culture and, again, habits.
Yeah.
Like enforcing these into the organisation or into your business from the get-go.
Yeah. And I guess, kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but there's 2 kind of uses for policy. One is to make sure that staff are educated, they know what they need to do, and it improves things. And then I guess kind of the other use for policies is organisations can cover their own arse a bit, and that's not necessarily so they can pin the blame on staff if something goes wrong. That can be anything from like an access control policy. If you've got a contractor on site, they need to be aware of the access control policy, and if something goes wrong because of that, they need to know why that's happened.
I think regardless of what your policy or your process is, I think it's about all of it really comes down to safety, really. Mm-hmm. Whether that's safety of information, safety of a human, safety of a property. Like, how do we make sure that this is as secure as we possibly can be? So that's really what for me, that's really what any policy comes down to. And giving people the guidelines of what they can work in. So, another one to look at would be like an administrative policy. So you have account separation. The account that you're logging in with day to day is a standard user account. Shouldn't be able to do anything really apart from your day-to-day job. If you have been given the authority to make changes to your laptop, these changes should be done by a separate account. Now, what really you need there is the policy that says, right, your standard user account, this is how you use it. Your admin account, this is how you use it. Like, under no circumstances does your admin account log into emails, or under no circumstances should your standard account be able to install software without having to elevate to an admin account. So again, it's when you look at it at every level, it's at that point, it's protection of like your laptop, because you're making sure that people that are maintaining it know how to maintain it properly with the right accounts. It's protecting the person, the employee, the user, because you've given them clear guidelines on what they should and shouldn't be doing. So as much as you could say it is kind of arse covering, I do actually think it comes down to like safety and giving people the guidelines and the guidance around what they should and shouldn't be doing so that they can do their job as best they can and be keeping everything safe.
So we've kind of covered on policies. How's a tracker different?
Yeah, so a tracker really, it depends what you're using the tracker for. I mean, trackers are, or we call them trackers, but they're actually asset lists or asset registers. But with the asset lists and asset registers, you can have different fields or different qualities about them. What's a better word? Not qualities, but different attributes, if you like, that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So, we talk about an admin tracker. Really, what that is a list of your administrative accounts or your admin assets, if you like. Who is it that's got? To what have they got? When was it given? Has it ever been revoked? Who authorised it?
When was it last reviewed?
When was it last
reviewed? Do they still need access? Because ultimately, the goal is you're tracking. Say with the admin access one, you want to know who has admin access, but the kind of point of knowing who has admin access is to know and make sure that it's removed when they don't need it anymore. That's kind of the end goal, to make sure that people don't have things that they don't need to have.
Yeah. And again, this is different. You can do this in different ways. I mean, you could use an Excel spreadsheet with a list of things, firewall, you, me, Office 365, you, me, like whoever it might be. Or there's different ways, like some systems themselves will have lists that you can pull from them. So again, like you were saying, it's about reviewing them as well. Like it's easy to forget these things when you're so busy with your day-to-day. Cyber or information security isn't something that you delivering on a day-to-day basis like us. So it's easy to forget. Like, it is easy to forget, which is why the review process is so important. Like, are you doing it quarterly? Are you doing it like every 6 months? Are you doing it annually? Like, you don't really want to be doing it or leaving it any longer than 12 months, I would say. If you can get into the habit of doing it quarterly, then that's even better. And like you say, it's just about trying to find anything that you might have missed that you can tighten up a little bit. Like, oh, they left the organisation 6 months ago. Might raise a couple of red flags that your leavers process isn't quite there, or your removing admin access process isn't there as well. So they can all funnel into different things, and it's just continually improving and chipping away at this stuff.
What it is we're human beings, not robots, and things get missed. It's human error. And a tracker's a great way of a tracker and a quarterly or bi-yearly review helps pick up the little bits of human error where somebody might have left and not need admin access anymore, making sure that gets jumped on and isn't left for 5 years, because ultimately they're the those doors that are just left ever so slightly open and then kind of almost lapses in concentration are usually the things that attackers use.
Yeah,
because generally speaking,
well, they know that it's not being checked.
Well, exactly. That's what it is. So that they know, as a threat actor, they know that's going to be their best chance, finding something that's been missed. Where an organisation largely might be quite good, ultimately we're humans and things might get missed. So trackers help people, pick those bits up.
Yeah. So the admin tracker that we spoke about is really about tracking who has access to what systems. The cloud, there's a cloud tracker, but again, the same thing with that is it's just an asset list. Like, what cloud services are we using within the business? Who is the administrator of that cloud service? Does that cloud service have multi-factor authentication? Or is it configured with single sign-on? Or does it not have it at all? Like, has it, when you're checking that thing, and when we see this time and time again as well, is like people chop and change cloud services, not all the time, but it's a regular thing, right? Maybe they've changed accounts package So sometimes you'll see, I don't know, 0 being written down, and now they're using QuickBooks.
Businesses move on from things, they grow, and they might need something else. That as businesses grow, especially, they get kind of departmentalized, and they might need now a HR department and kind of specialized HR software. So as businesses grow and change, cloud services change with that. You know, at the core of it, people still use your Office 365s and your Google Workspaces, but it's the little bits of software and cloud services on the side of that that usually get missed, because it's not kind of standard day-to-day work for every single person in the organization. And that's usually the ones that get missed and people need to track and kind of keep closer attention on.
Yeah. Or maybe they've changed like an accountant or something.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you usually see, or we see regular, is people have changed provider, and their provider are using different tools.
Yeah.
And then that kind of has ripple and knock-on effects through their organisation.
Yeah.
But again, it's about doing your due diligence and making sure that part of your selection process is making sure that these security things can be configured, or they are there, or they're covered off.
Yeah.
And then the review process behind all that. The usual trackers, I mean, the big one for me, like I say, is 100% is like the cloud service one. Like, you can almost guarantee that people don't really know what their cloud services are. And again, this falls back to policy and processes, right? Like, if I employ you as an employee and I give you a set of tasks, and you're like, well, I'm used to using all these cloud services, so I'm just going to register myself an account and do all this work there. It's like, as a business owner, and thinking about like what information you're potentially sharing to a cloud service that I don't even know about, like, where's this information going?
Yeah.
So it's important, again, for processes and policies to clearly define that if you want to use a cloud service, it needs to go through a review process and be authorized, so that we can make sure that it's ticking all the boxes for us, it's secure, we know where the data is going to be, how it's going to be used. It's so easy to sign up to like different cloud services nowadays, provide an email address, create an account, you're in.
Yeah.
And if you as a business owner aren't tracking that, like, what chance do your employees stand?
Yeah.
The hardest thing about policy and process is knowing really what you want to do and why you want to do it. And then as soon as you've figured that out, it's actually writing the documentation to support it all is where people really struggle, because it's boring, isn't it? Let's face it, nobody wants to be sat there writing documents and then implementing them all. I mean, how many times do you go to anything and go like, oh, just read the terms and conditions? Does anybody ever read T's and C's? They just go, oh, that's where I need to sign. And that, but that says it all. Like, that's exactly the same with like policies. Like, here's the password policy. I think that's why people understanding the process is very important, because, if you came to like work for us, I could be like, right, here's your account. We've set you all up. We've gone through the process and we've handed over your account. Like, you need to change your password and this is how it should be done. But that is because I know what the policy is already and what I want your password to be like to meet our policy.
Doing Cyber Essentials Plus audits, we don't really see people's policies. We kind of test how they implement the policy. So we see the process side of things more. We get a glimpse at how long people's passwords are when they're signing into cloud services. And every now and then you'd be like, okay, can you just sign into this, please? And they'll type in like 5 characters and you go, oh, really? Like, can you just sign into your admin account? And it's like, da, da, da. And you're like, oh, that was a bit short. Like, so we see that more than the policy side of things. We take the time when we're doing a Cyber Essentials Plus audit and kind of be aware, and if there's anything outside of the kind of remit of Cyber Essentials Plus that we come across, we advise the point of contact. So if I see somebody sign into Office 365 with a 6-character password, I'll go, look, this is outside of the scope of, well, it's inside of the scope of Cyber Essentials, really. In that case, we would tell the point of contact, because if they've said in their self-assessment, we require policies of a minimum of 12 characters, and we've seen that they haven't, then we'd advise them to get that changed. But there are also changes that we can advise people to make outside of Cyber Essentials Plus. So you were just having the discussion with Dan, weren't you, about policies, and kind of the hardest bit tends to be getting pen to paper and getting the words down. So we've kind of created a Cyber Essentials policy pack, haven't we, that should arm people with all they need to go on past Cyber Essentials kind of policy-wise.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think one of the hardest things about policies is actually deciding what you want to do, sitting down and writing it.
Writing it, yeah.
So Cyber Essentials asks for, a handful of policies. So what we've decided to do is do the lion's share of that work for you and create a pack that you can use to implement, knowing that other than a few changes like, putting your own logo and your own branding on there and making sure that you're happy with 12 character passwords rather than 20 character passwords or whatever it might be, the lion's share of that work is actually done for you. And the way that you implement that ultimately is making sure they're what you want. You sign them off, you approve them as the MD or whoever, you put them somewhere that all employees can access them, and then you let them know what they are.
Yeah.
Where they are.
Yeah. And I guess the disclaimer in all of this isn't put your logo on it, put your company name on it, we're secure. It's you do have to make the conscious effort to implement them, but it's like you said, the hardest bit's kind of the writing of them and creating a strong enough policy yourself without just kind of, a lot of people nowadays, it's just ChatGPT, write me a password policy. These policies have been written in a way to, comply with Cyber Essentials and the scheme as a whole. So a lot of the, Cyber Essentials always links back to the NCSC requirements for infrastructure document. These policies have been written in a way that complies with those NCSC requirements. So in a way, it's almost like a policy that's been written off the NCSC's advice.
And best practice. I mean, a lot of the stuff as well is it's overwhelmed. It's nowhere to start, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people won't start because they don't know where to start. And so that's exactly what this is all about. Let's give people the start. Let's do the 90% of what people need to be doing and give them so that they can achieve. And it's about making them more secure, right? And more comfortable with it all.
And the big thing with policies as well, when people go out and write their own policies, the number one question they ask when they get somebody else to look through it is, what have I missed?
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you kind of have that, rest assured it's
there's a level of reassurance in it all, knowing that, we've put this together off the back of NCSE guidelines, off the back of best practice, off the back of Cyber Essentials requirements. So like I say, other than a few tweaks, it's pretty much good to go. But the responsibility is still on that business and that owner. These are templates.
The implementation we can't help you with.
Yeah.
The actual policy itself is, the bit a lot of people, it's that first hurdle that some business owners just go, okay, right, gonna look at policies, go to write one, sit there for 10 minutes, don't get anywhere and go, another day, it's a job for another day. Whereas just having it there ready to go, the implementation isn't always the hardest bit. So you've got it there, you've just got to implement it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like when we had to implement HR, human resource policies and employee policies and employee handbooks, I didn't know where to start. I had to go out and get some consultancy or some guidance around what do I need to cover? What do I need to make sure I'm covering for the employee? What do I need to make sure I'm covering for me as the owner, for the business? And again, if I kind of thought, oh, I've got to do this myself, it probably would have never got done because of the overwhelm.
Yeah.
So, you end up reaching out to someone, getting the advice, getting the guidance, reading through what they're telling you. They're giving you the high level. This is what this means. This is why. What's your kind of annual leave policy? All these kind of things to relate it to what I went through. And at the end of it, you've got that level of assurance that or reassurance that what we've put in is quite solid. Again, is it going to be 100% bulletproof? Probably not. But I know in the back of my mind that I've got this policy and I've got someone that I can rely on if I need to.
Yeah. The main goal of this kind of policy pack is, it doesn't cover all bases of information security. It's geared towards Cyber Essentials. And the whole idea is that business owners and businesses can just download them, implement them, and go into Cyber Essentials a bit more confident that they've kind of got all bases covered when it comes to Cyber Essentials.
Yeah. Yeah, it's your admin trackers, it's your cloud trackers, it's your password policy, joiners, movers, leavers, and it's your admin elevation requests and process.
Yeah, which are all policies that need to be implemented for business, and we see them. It's more these micro organisations that are suffering with like the classic growing pains you get as your business grows. It's like, right, we've got a few staff now. You've gone from one-man band, you've got a few staff. You've got a team. You need something to get everybody on the same page security-wise. And like we said earlier about it filtering down from the top, this is the way you do it.
And it's pain points as well, right? So again, a lot of people will rely on their IT providers. Like, what if your IT provider's policies are actually our employees only need 6 character passwords and they can use their standard user account as their admin? Like, there at that point is like your weakest link, right? Yeah. So it's making sure that their policies are adhering to yours. Yep, we're all good. Like, again, it's just trying to remove these pain points, making sure that if you've got people looking after your systems for you, that they're meeting these things as well.
I guess it helps you when it actually comes to Cyber Essentials, because I'd say quite a lot of the questions in Cyber Essentials, it gives you the answer for them. For instance, if you're asked in Cyber Essentials, how do you make sure people create secure passwords? It's you've got it in policy. This is what we do. For instance, in this policy, people have to have a minimum of 12 character passwords. MFA has to be enabled where it's available. So it kind of, you've got all your answers through policy when it comes to Cyber Essentials. And when you can back your answers up with policy and Cyber Essentials, you go into it so much more confident because you've got the answers.
But the fact of the matter is, you need them for Cyber Essentials.
Yeah.
The thing with Cyber Essentials is it's a self-assessment.
Yeah.
So you're giving us the answer, yes, no, maybe there is a little bit of text in there, but we can only really judge that off what you're giving us. We don't actually know whether you have these policies in place or not. We're only going off what you're telling us. So really, you do need them, and it's for your peace of mind more so than ours. Like, it's your business at risk.
Yeah.
So again, making sure that, yes, we've got a solid foundation there. We have got a process. Here's the policy.
So for anybody watching that's wondering, how do we get our hands on this policy pack?
Yeah, so just reach out. Like, it really is that simple. We're more than happy to help, have a conversation with people. So if it's something that you'd be interested in and it feels like it's going to solve some of your issues or your pain points, then contact us by email.
Or LinkedIn. Rob Neller or James Nichols on LinkedIn. We're always happy to send them over. A lot of people understand, like, right, we need this, but it just being honest, it is so boring. It's so boring, isn't it? But it's like, it is finding a way to make it fun. And that's why, like, the whole thing of like gamifying things, you see a lot of like people, I'm sure I've seen an organisation do like a quiz or like a Kahoot on their like information security policy or something, which is a great idea, by the way. Like, training, gamifying it is like a big thing. If you can turn anything into a game, people instantly are interested. So like doing a Kahoot on all of like your like password policies and stuff is a great way of kind of getting it in people's minds so they know what's going on.
No, to be fair, I was with you. Like, I'm with you on it. Like, literally, like, I think the way to educate is you've got to gamify.
You've got to gamify everything.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's not my idea of the most fun pub quiz going, like information security, but that's how people are going to know. And that is another way that you can form part of their training, is this kind of like, right, let's have an hour a year just on like information security, like, and it could be anything, like, where's our password policy saved? Who's the contact for this? What happens if this? Like, any kind of stuff like that.
Well, they did it at, we went to the East Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre's Christmas party, and they had that game, didn't they? Which was like guess the password.
Oh, yeah.
So there was kind of like a short paragraph about this user. It was like a bio of like things it likes, and you had to guess the password. Winner got a bottle of champagne, so everybody's like locked in. It's like put
Password
alcohol or
123
money on the
obviously,
line.
weren't it?
Basically, is the alcohol or money? You're in.
Everyone's like well overcomplicating. I think I think a password.
Yeah,
is like
I
Sally
think I
one or
spent about
something.
half an hour on it trying to figure it out. I didn't get a single bit of it right. I hope that this episode has armed you with everything you need to secure your business's data. Feel free to contact both of us on LinkedIn, where we're happy to take the conversation further. As always, all of our information is in the video description, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.